Hi, today I'm having a look at Fansproject Function X1 code. This popped up late last year all of a sudden as a pre-order on BBTS for, I think it was $70. I mean, some really cheap price in comparison to what I was expecting Fansproject stuff to go for. And it was a holiday deal where between Fansproject and BBTS they were going to donate $20 worth of toys to charity for Christmas. So it was a good cause. I'd like to say I bought it for the good cause, but honestly I bought it because I just had faith that Fansproject were going to make something really nice, and this is what I got. So the box itself is really weird compared to other Fansproject boxes. We've got a bit of an ill-fitting plastic sleeve around a really tall plain brown box. Now I'm used to something more like, let's give me a second, more like the Assaulter that I showed you before, where the sleeve on the box is really tight and it's a nice fitting package. But this thing is a bit weird. It doesn't seem to fit like it was designed to go on this box properly. But anyway, let's get it open and have a look what's inside. Okay, so once we get this code figure out of the box, and by the way, code, I'm just assuming that everyone realizes this is the G1 Headmaster Chromedome. So anyway, once we get code out of the box, he's a really good looking figure, and the most striking feature is the coloring. So I mean, Chromedome was this color originally, but it's been a long time since we've had a palette with these tans and browns and creams mixed in with a little bit of red. I can't think of another figure just off the top of my head that has looked this way, so it's very striking and it stands out on a shelf quite well in comparison to other figures. He comes with a couple of rifles, and this was one of his selling points before it was announced who this guy would be. So he's got these two scoped rifles which are the same, he can hold in each hand, and they look pretty nice. The red is nice, the white paint job on the tip and the scope is really crisply done, and just all around he's a beautiful figure to look at. Flawless paintwork, no kind of overspray or bleeding anywhere. Each part is painted to perfection. Okay, so as far as posability is concerned, he's a little bit limited. You can see his shoulders don't go out any more than this, and his legs don't swing outwards any more than this. So it's a little bit of a backward step for Fansproject in terms of posability, but I'm not complaining. I mean, it's good enough for what I want to do with the figure, and given that this looks exactly how I would dream Chromedome would look, I'm prepared to kind of accept these lacking areas just to get him looking the way that I want him. And I mean, just the design choices which have led to that limiting here on the hip, although it's limited, it looks fantastic. I love the way this hip joint looks. The paneling on the thighs, all around, the aesthetics of this guy satisfy me in a really good way. Even on the bottom of the feet we've got this little fan detailing, don't ask me why. Okay, I mean, apart from those limitations, just one thing I'll mention before I move on to the rest of the posability. This joint in the gun, which is put in there for posability in vehicle mode, is just pinned on with a tiny little plastic pin, and I always feel like pulling it out like this to get it out of his hand, but it is quite a tight fit in the hand, and you must hold it at the base of the handle like this to pull it out. If you're going to pull it out by the body of the gun, it's very likely to snap off because that little pin is only plastic. It's not a metal pin. So anyway, he's got 360 degrees at the shoulder this way. He's got, what's that, 90, 100, maybe 120 degrees at the elbow. If you use the transformation joint at the wrist, you can get this kind of double jointedness on the wrist. But if you're not willing to do that, you only have a wrist rotation. Backwards and forwards on the hip is 180. The knee is fully double jointed. The ankle has no tilt. It has a backwards click and no forwards click. The head, or the headmaster, can rotate like this, and that's because the socket that the headmaster plugs into is on its own little table that can rotate. So the joint is done in the body of the toy, not in the small workings of the headmaster, which is probably good, given that that would necessitate the headmaster having a tiny little swivel, which would probably snap off in the long run. Okay, being a headmaster, let's see if his head can work with other new figures that I've got. So if you remember, a couple of weeks ago I had a look at head robots. What was it, Centurion Leader or something like that, the one from Fortress Maximus. Now, this peg, which is used to go into the G1 headmasters, will not fit. There's just no way to do it. It's definitely not going to happen, which is a real pity, because if I just sit that head on there, it looks quite nice. And I could imagine having the rest of this line being able to mix and match heads as I see fit. It would be really good for the play value. So I'm a bit disappointed that the head robots toys can't fit on. I do have a hose head somewhere, like a G1 headmaster, but I can't access him at the moment, so I can't show you how that goes on. And I don't have any of the bigger headmasters from G1, so I'm assuming that the bigger headmasters from G1 use the same size peg as this head robot's peg, but I can't answer that 100% for sure. I'm sure that if you're willing to sacrifice this little nub that comes with the head robots, you could file this down to fit in the hole, and I've got a few of these. I think I might do that because I like the way this head looks, and I think this head looks better on Chromedome than it does on the Cerebros for Fortress Maximus. So this might be a new home for this head when the real head is out doing something. Okay, having a look at the real head. So the head itself is really attractive, and again the paintwork is done pretty flawlessly considering how small this really is. It has a unique transformation, as far as I can tell, for headmasters, where he's kind of bent up like that with his knees up to his chest. So just by moving his legs down, you can get him to transform. And the interesting thing about that is, in doing so, it closes the little panel where the eyes were poking out on the face portion of the backpack. So in the transformation, his facial features disappear, which is kind of cool. So I'll put it back like that, and you can see there he is again. Focus. And if I move the legs down, that little section disappears. It's pretty cool. His face, if I can get the camera to see it, is painted with a nice yellow with big blue visor. So this little headmaster is probably one of the most intricately painted headmasters that's out there, especially considering the size of it. So let's talk about scale. Now, some figures that you might have. Here is Swerve, the GDO Swerve, and you can see that these guys really similarly sized. So Chromedome is pretty perfectly sized deluxe for classics or some of the slightly older generations figures. And Swerve, he's a fantastic figure as well. These guys kind of really complement each other. The slight touches of red on Chromedome, they go quite well with Swerve. Now, RC, fiction-wise, is a good comparison as well, given that these two are featured in Season 4 together of G1. So again, RC is really sized perfectly to fit. This is the Delicate Warrior, I think, RC. So she's perfectly scaled to this Chromedome. So Fansproject have picked a perfect size for this figure. That wasn't my first reaction. Actually, my first reaction when I opened the box was, isn't he small? And that's mainly because I used to have G1 Chromedome and he's much, much taller than this. So when I first saw it, I thought, oh, what's going on here? But then when I realized it fits with pretty much every other toy that I want it to be posed with, I'm quite happy with this size. I think I'll show you some other scale shots in vehicle mode after we do the transformation. Okay, to transform this guy, it's not too complicated, but nevertheless pretty satisfying and very unique. So first, obviously being a headmaster, pull off the head, put that aside. And here, just you can see that he's got a head tilt and the rotation built into this panel here, something I should have showed you before. Anyway, okay, so we want to bend the hands so that they're the back of the hand facing out. Then we're going to fold them back over like this and bend that little flap down. Next thing we want to do is just lower the feet 2 clicks like this. That will allow us to bend the shin panels forward and rotate them 180 degrees to the back like this. After they're back, continue bending the feet until the whole thing can be a straight line, kind of flush like that. At the thighs, twist them 90 degrees inwards so that this little brown panel is pointing upwards. The next thing we want to do is just fold the arms up into this kind of position. I'm going to bring down this little crutch area like that. Nice little hydraulic details inside. I like that. And here is the wow part that everybody is talking about. This front panel is on a rail. You can see the rail starts on the chest but continues down into this independently articulated groin section. And this is amazing. Just slide it down, continue to push until it's right down into the aforementioned groin, and then we can rotate the whole thing around like this. So we moved that panel to the other side of the toy, fold up the canopy or the windshield or whatever you want to call it, and we're just going to bend these sections out. Make sure that the arms are rotated so that that little peg hole is at the top, because that's where his guns will be, and then just bring them together. So the idea of these arms is that they tab together in the middle here, but I've found on mine at least they don't tab. No matter how hard I push that, it doesn't really hold in, and I think that's kind of a design flaw. The piece of plastic doesn't have long enough teeth to grab it. You can get it to kind of sit there, which is normally good enough. The next thing we want to do is bend these leg sections around like this, turn it over to the underside, and there's this little tab which is going to go into a hole. So you just kind of click it all together and it will lock. Push the bonnet down so that the brown bits poke up through the middle. Give it all a good squeeze. Just squeeze it around a bit until you make sure that the wheels are all rotating like this one. I've just got to pull this out a bit. This wheel is touching. There we go. So now all the wheels are kind of freewheeling, and there we have it. So you must forgive my surface here. It's a bumpy old piece of cardboard underneath. does normally roll pretty good. I've done something slightly wrong at the moment in this wheel area. If you don't get it just right, the wheel tends to grind on one of the other pieces of plastic. So now it's right. It's free rolling now, but it can be a little bit off sometimes, and just a bit of a squeeze in every direction, you can adjust it till it's suitable for rolling. The guns now can tab onto the back of the arms like this and just twist up, and then he has weapons for vehicle mode. I don't really like the way that looks. I like the guns, but I don't like them on the car. But still, it's pretty cool if you want to arm him up. But anyway, I'm just going to pull those off. And being a headmaster, his windshield opens up like this, and your little dude here, I think his name's Stylor or something like that. I was never a big headmaster guy, so I don't remember. You can bend up this little control stick, and just in this gap between his legs there's a peg inside which is going to insert to hold him in place. Excuse my big fat fingers, but there we go. He's driving Chromedome. That's awesome. I love that. Such great play value, and this guy, you could use him in so many other situations. Really happy with the way this is. Just going to focus a little bit better. Now, a kind of design fault or flaw with this toy is the corner on this canopy section here. I keep calling it a canopy, it's a windshield or roof. I've actually filed this off with a nail file to give it a slight roundedness to it, and that's because it was full on 90 degrees when I got it, and pretty much everyone I've heard having this, when you shut the door like this, that 90-degree angle would scrape on the plastic. All it needed was a few seconds of filing with a nail file, and you can see there's no damage done, just a little bit rounded, and then you can bend that up and down without causing scratches onto the toy. So I don't know why. Maybe that was a bit of oversight on Fansproject's part. They just didn't anticipate that was going to happen, but it is probably the single worst problem with the toy, that it full on scratches it if you don't file that off before you get a hold of it. I've heard criticisms of this, that the colours suck, but honestly I don't see it. I love the coloration on this, and we can't have every toy having the same colours. You need some differences, and even more than that, this guy doesn't look like a badass, and that's one of the reasons I like this toy. We've got to this stage now in the fandom where everything that comes out is the ultimate badass, you know. Then everything is one-upping the one before it, until you get to the stage where guys have guns on their guns on their guns and huge shoulder pads and armor everywhere. Where are the ordinary robots? So that's what I like about this guy. He looks really attractive, but he's one of the ordinary guys. He's not a badass. He's just your average Joe Transformer. And he looks like it. Look at this car. It looks good. It looks what it's supposed to look like. But again, it's pretty simple. The colors are simple. The design is relatively simple. Yet it pulls off exactly what it needs to do. And that's the primary reason I think that I like this toy. It's adequate in every way. Let's put that down and do a bit of a size comparison. So here's Classics Red Alert, or Generations, whatever you're going to call that. Pretty similar. I know that it's blowing out a bit with the whites on the black background, sorry for that. So very, very similar in size. So he fits in perfectly with the Autobot cars. Who else have I got here? The hated, most shithouse, worst Transformer that I bought in a good long time. Fall of Cybertron Jazz. And I don't, just a side note, the people who are starting to claim they like this toy, get out of here, man. This is a piece of junk. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't buy Sideswipe mold, thank God, because I had Masterpiece Sideswipe. I didn't need to get Fall of Cybertron Sideswipe. I feel like he looks a lot better than this, but it's a trick. I'm sure it's a trick. Anyway, if you're into that kind of thing, he does kind of scale with Chromedome, although he's a little bit small if you look at that. But this toy is small compared to everything, so what can you do? So my final thoughts on this guy. This series, Function X, is really looking good. I hadn't thought about it a great deal until this one popped up. But now that I see it, this is exactly the kind of thing that I want. So I'm looking forward to getting Headmasters from Fansproject. So this figure is pretty much good in every way that I care to measure, and I think that anyone would enjoy it. Maybe if you're the kind of person who values posability above everything, then this might not be the guy for you, because he does lack posability wise. But if you just like to look at cool things on your shelf or play with toys, I think this is perfect, you know. I mean, let's not give him a bum rap. He's got some limitations, but look at that. I mean, that's pretty decent posability. It's by no means a brick. You can get a lot of cool poses, and although he's a little bit limited, I like him. So my recommendation is definitely, I mean, it's too late now. The pre-orders are gone. If he comes out again, definitely pick him up. He's definitely worth it. $70, yeah, you know, third-party wise, that's a good price, I think. So this has been Odeean. This is my video review for Function X1 Code. Thanks for watching.